Hey there and welcome. My name is Hannah Gumbo and I am an artist, a doodler, and somebody who loves colorful art. So today we're going to learn together a new art technique and we're going to make colorful scratch art like you see right here. But first, this video is part of the Acadiana Center for the Arts online series called Virtual Art Studio. This is where teachers present lessons in visual art, dance, music, movement, all kinds of awesome stuff. So you can check back on this channel every week and see what else you can learn and play around with. So first, let's get started. Like I said, we're going to be learning how to make colorful scratch art, and we're going to be drawing, but as you probably guessed, it's not going to be drawing like a dark color on a light piece of paper. It's going to be kind of the opposite, and we're going to use tools to scratch away our drawing. Before I get into this new technique, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So like I said, I'm an artist and I love to doodle and to draw. And I kind of got started just really being interested in any kind of new tool I could get my hands on. So using chalk, using paint, pencils. You'll see that when we get our materials, I even pull some things out of the recycling, like the back of a cereal box and things like that. So I want to let you know that you can make art out of anything, absolutely. There will be a few important tools we use today in order to do this technique. But as I grew up and I started learning how to make art, I didn't always have access to every single art supply tool. You can find just a pencil, a piece of paper. You can make art with all kinds of fun things. And so hopefully as you continue on your art journey, you learn new tools, new techniques, just like I did. Today I am a full-time artist, and so I split my time between making art that goes on fun things like phone cases and stickers and art prints. And I also like making really big art like murals and posters for cool like music events and festivals. So the technique that we learned today, you can use that to make any kind of art you want. It can be something personal for you, or it can be a gift, or it can represent something you love, like music, movie, TV shows, etc. So we are going to dive right in. I'm going to show you what tools you need, and then after that, we'll get started. All right, so let's talk about supplies for our scratch art project today. Ideally, you want to have some thicker paper. So you can use whatever paper you have around, but thicker paper is going to work best because we're adding on materials, and again, we're scratching away. So we don't want that to tear. If you have like a manila folder or a thick folder like this that you're not using anymore, this would be a really great one. If not, I love to reuse stuff from the recycling bin like this. So this is just a thicker paper that you can pull out. It could be the back of a cereal box, something like this. Look around your house and just make sure it's something that is no longer being used, but a thicker paper like this will be great. You'll also need a paintbrush. Doesn't really matter what size, depending on the surface area you're wanting to cover, a bigger brush is better. But even if you don't have a paintbrush, you could find something like a Q-tip, and even your finger, as long as you're not making too much of a mess. So we just need something to put the paint on the paper. You're gonna want a black paint. It could be acrylic, it could be whatever you have around. You only need a little bit of it that you'll see, but you definitely want black paint as opposed to a different type of color. If you happen to have a lot of other colors of paint, but not black, you can mix all the colors you have together to make it nice and dark. Because we're going to want that high contrast, and that high contrast is when you can see a light color and a dark color together, so they stand out really well. So we'll have our paint, our paintbrush, our paper. We need something to mix our paint in. So you could have something like this, which you can get from the art supply store. This works really well for putting different kinds of paint and stuff in it, but you can also just save something. I think this held like cookies or something in it. Again, just taking this from the recycling bin, it's going straight to the recycling or the trash. We don't need it anymore. This is a nice little bin to mix paint in. Or if you have like a disposable plate or something like that, that works too. And then the other supplies we're gonna need are a little bit different. So believe it or not, we're actually gonna need some dish soap. Yes, and this is part of what makes the paint scratch away really easy. So you'll definitely need this. And then another important supply is a type of crayon called oil pastel. And they come in all different shapes, colors, and sizes. They're a little bit thicker typically than a normal crayon, and they have a lot of pigment in it. So the color comes out really nice and beautiful. I'll show you an example of that. If you haven't used oil pastels before, they're a little bit different than normal crayons that have more wax in them. You'll notice that when you're going to use them and to draw, you might look at your hand and see that some has rubbed off on it. And that's part of the fun of it. It's a more messy supply, just like paint. So you're gonna wanna prepare your surface and prepare for this. Don't be wearing your favorite shirt if you're kind of a messy art maker. And just watch your hands. If you get some on you, you don't wanna be rubbing your face, right, and getting it everywhere. But you can blend colors really beautifully, and you could see that right here I had like a white oil pastel and I went over and it started to blend these colors together. So you can really play around and have some nice techniques. And of course, lastly, this is called scratch art. So we need something to scratch away as our drawing tool. And you could really use anything. You could use the bottom of your paintbrush right here to chip away. You can also take a mechanical pencil and put all the lead back. That has a nice pointed tip where you can get nice fine lines. What I'm going to use today, what I really like, is a simple pen cap. So you can see right here, this little part that comes off comes to a nice point, and you can actually see there's black paint on it because I've already used it to do my scratch art. So that's what I'll be using today. And remember, part of the fun of this is not necessarily the end result because we're learning together. It's really about trying new tools, new techniques, and as you begin to master it and become more comfortable with it, then maybe your artwork can grow and start to look different. All right, so let's get started. I am starting with just a scrap of some of that folder that I showed you earlier, a thick paper. And I have my oil pastels right here. You can do a variety of techniques. You can definitely do blobs of color all around. You can do kind of like a scribble, scrabble where there's colors overlapping everywhere. And I'm gonna show you another technique I really like. I want this whole area filled up with oil pastel. You can use any colors you like. I kind of like doing this spirally technique where I just start in the center and I go all the way around with my color. I may switch, fill in parts of it. It's kind of like a snake wrapping itself all the way around. A nice little spiral, but kind of with some squared edges. And notice I'm trying to fill in all that space of the folder. I don't want there to be a whole lot of area that doesn't have oil pastel. And I kind of like this. I may add some lighter oil pastel and kind of blend. You see how it turns more pink? Come back here, blend this in. So this may be a technique that I use. I kind of like, instead of starting with my end result size, I like starting a little bit bigger so I can come in and cut down to the size that I want. So in this case, this is pretty small, but this allows me to come in. Maybe I want to create like a wiggly little shape right here for my final piece of artwork. So I like to cut it down, and just like I said, this is kind of a messier supply, so you definitely want to have something down to catch all of the little debris. You'll see all of this as little bits of oil pastel right here. But this is a really good start because you have a lot of different colors and it's mostly completely covered up with oil pastel. You don't want to use your darker colors. You see I have a dark green in this pack, a black, and this dark blue I'd probably want to stay away from because remember, we want high contrast. We're going to be putting black paint over this. So when we scratch that away, if we reveal a dark green, it's not going to be as impressive as this light green, say right here, this yellow, that's really going to pop through. So this is a really good start. I can also do this technique where I'm just taking crayons and just kind of overlapping them all the way around. And you can see just how you can build up color. You can go over and over again, just like paint. And just like I showed you here, this one I kind of did scribble scrabble. I did some of the darker, but I covered it back up with yellow. And again, I would come back in and I would cut that into maybe a nice triangle or a rectangle or just a square, some kind of shape that I want to completely cover with my black paint. I'm gonna go ahead and use this piece here. And I've finished with my oil pastels. I've covered it completely. So I'm gonna move these over. My next stage is gonna be actually getting my paint ready. And like I said, oil pastels are messy and paint will definitely be messy too. I'm gonna go with this tray, but you can use any kind of like plate or whatever to put your material in. And I want my black paint and my dish soap. And I'm gonna actually use this small little area here. And you want about half and half. So however much dish soap you put in, you want the same amount of black paint. And I'm not gonna measure, I'm just gonna eyeball it. And if you want to, you can get a separate little stick to mix it up, but I'm just gonna use my paintbrush right here. And it's equal parts of any dish soap and black paint. And I'm gonna mix that all together. Once I've got it mixed pretty well, I'm gonna get my finished piece of paper and I'm gonna go all the way over it. You can see that cool little kind of edge that I did here. And we're gonna cover the entire thing, okay? This will dry pretty quickly. You'll probably wanna do at least 2 coats of this paint mixture on top because you want it nice and thick over your oil pastel. So you can blow dry in between, or you can just leave it in a nice sunny place and let it dry and then do a second and then maybe 3rd coat, depending on what you like. So I'm gonna set that down here and show you what that'll look like. I've got a few examples right here. Okay, you can see for this one, I've used that folder and you can see paint is messy, right? I got some on the back, but I've covered this a couple of times. This is dried, ready for me to scratch away. And then this example, I went ahead and I used a recycled piece of cardboard. So this was some cookie packaging and I just went ahead and did my oil pastels and then painted on top. So I have these 2 examples right here, and I'm also gonna need my scratching tool. So remember, we can use all types of different things to scratch away, but I'm actually gonna take this pen cap, and I really love the way it's got a tiny little tip right here. I think that'll be really interesting. So go ahead and grab your scratching tool and wait for your paint to dry, and you'll be ready for the next step. So here we have our finished piece of painted cardboard. And this is the folder. Like I said, this is the cardboard packaging. You could see for this one, I kept it more of like a rectangle with really like sharp edges. And this one, I kind of liked that it was just cut out at a kind of a wonky shape. So it's up to you what you decide to do. Just like the oil pastels are a little bit messy, I'll show you that this material as well. You could see if you start rubbing against it, it could come off on your fingers, your clothes. So just be mindful of that when you're making art. I'm gonna go ahead and start scratching away at this. So we'll talk about later maybe some ideas of what you may want to scratch, but right now I'm just gonna show you the technique. So I'm using any kind of pointy surface. This pen cap will work great for me. And I'm just gonna create a border all the way around so you can kind of see. So clearly I had some orange oil pastel underneath here. You could see how that's a really nice contrast, right? This bright orange is showing through against this nice black matte paint. It's also, as you scratch away, gonna have all these little bits right here that will be a little bit messy. So if you wanna do this project outside, this part, or if you wanna just put something underneath that you could throw away, that'll work out great. You can turn your piece of art to make it easier to get to, or you can just get messy and kind of put your hand right there in the middle. So I'm gonna do a different technique right here. And you can see that not only is the orange coming through, but now we're seeing some green, some yellow. And I kind of like just practicing with this little border just to start seeing what colors are gonna come through. And with this one, I might do a different technique of just creating some lines right here. And you'll find what you like to do, what you find looks best as you begin to practice. So I tried a few different things. It's gonna slide off really nicely with something like this. You may notice the different tools you use give you a thinner line or a thicker line. You can see right here I got pretty thin, and right here I pressed down all the way and I got that nice thick line. I'm gonna go ahead and keep going, seeing what cool colors can pop out of here. Now I find that doing line drawings look best, but you can also completely hollow out a shape to where you only see that colorful background. I'll do that with the eyes. And let's check on the progress. So I got a little bit of black paint smearing on here. I got a lot of trash down below, but it's starting to look really good. And this can be a design that you are coming up with ahead of time, or you can just doodle and play around and see what happens. But remember, I think that using line drawing is gonna start to look best versus just completely taking off all the black paint, right? You're not gonna see that it's scratch art. So you wanna keep some of that black paint behind. So every mark that I make, I'm just moving it over a little bit so that you could see black paint and you can see the oil pastel coming through. And you can work really quickly. You can go as slow as you like. So I think this is starting to look great. I'll show you an example of what would happen if you just completely start scratching away. So if you don't do as much line work and you just start scratching, this looks pretty cool too. But you can get to the point where you don't see as much black at all. And it'll look something like this. So you decide how much you want to scratch away and how much you want to leave, right? I want to show you a few more examples of what I did with the scratch art. So you can see, like I said, I started with a border just to kind of start playing around with the colors that I'd see. So the same thing was done here, kind of a different technique. And I love that you can see so many different colors through it. So you can see some blue, some yellow. So with here, the oil pastels were just different colors like stripes all underneath it. So as you scratch away, you see a little bit of everything. It's also pretty fun to add words. You can put your name. This can be a type of artwork that you do for any size. So even when you're finished, if you wanted to cut through that right there, you could use it like as a bookmark or something like that. It's just really fun to play around with, even if you only have a small bit of paper, just to scratch away and see what happens. I would recommend not necessarily planning out exactly what you want to do, but kind of just doodling and having fun. This is, you could see, a little bit darker because I'm using that brown material, so it's not coming off quite as bright as if you use a lighter paper like this. But with this one I decided to do a scene, so you can see there's like stars and little lines to show wind and clouds and a house, and then down here is like my grass with a little cow. So if I were just wanting to show sky and I didn't put anything in the sky, it would just look completely black. So if you're gonna be creating like a landscape scene, you wanna make sure that you add lots of different types of line. I also love how it's not just one line straight across to show grass, right? It's a series of all types of different lines, some wiggly, some small, some big, and that's gonna come together to make a really cool little ground covering. And same with the sky. You can use big stars, little stars, all kinds of different cloud shapes. The sky's really the limit. You can decide whatever you want to do. But remember, the more scratch marks you make, the more full it's going to look. So for this last piece that I'm going to show you, I think I'm going to divide this into two and cut it just so I can play around in two different ways. So first, I'm going to decide where my first piece is going to end. And then I'm going to do my other piece right alongside of it. And I'm just going to cut this in half And now I have two different surfaces that I can try different techniques on. So for this one, I'm gonna just do a piece of art that has my name and lots of other different little shapes around it. My name is Hannah, and so I'm gonna divide it up where the first part of my name is on the top, and the rest of my name is right here on the bottom. And this is just so that I can put my name pretty large. If I did it straight across, it would be really small. Then I might come back and make some of these lines thicker. Could play around with that. And then you can do all types of different techniques. I might do little dots up here. I might add some detailing to my letters. I might add, I really like stars, so I might add some stars to the side of this, some more lines. And I just love that it's showing all of this cool color underneath through. Then with this one, I think I want to do another landscape. So I want part of this to be sky and part of this to be ground. So, and it's a really small little piece of paper, but I kind of like that, especially for just practicing. So I'm going to start, and I want to put my house right around the middle. And I'm just going to do a nice little triangle right here towards the center. Couple of lines back. And then straight down to make my little house. Make sure I put a door, and then I'm going to put a horizon line, which shows where the ground begins and the sky ends. So all this is going to be sky and all this is going to be ground. So I'm going to practice doing lots of different style lines. Some are going to go all the way across. Some are going to be short. I really like the way that's starting to look. And for the sky, I'm going to do a big moon. Maybe a few clouds. And then a lot of little polka dots to show stars. And I kind of like how the ground almost looks like it could be water too. Kind of looks like waves. So you can keep playing around with this and see. But whether you do something simple like your name and just practice different techniques, or if you want to draw a whole picture like this, I think it's lots of fun to practice with this technique of colorful scratch art. How was that? I hope that y'all had a lot of fun. You know, this can be kind of an exciting new thing to try out new tools like the scratch away and even just the oil pastel, but it also could be a little scary because once you scratch away on that paper, you can't put that paint right back. And so I realized that I think that this is one that you come back to. Maybe that first piece of scratch art you make, you really don't like it and you throw it away. That's totally fine. That's part of the reason that I love to use recycled materials, right? Something like this that you were just gonna put in the garbage can or put in the recycling anyway. This is all paper that we can create with. And like I said, the half dish soap, half acrylic paint, so it actually makes your art supplies go a little bit longer. If we try different techniques with this, then we'll get a little bit better each time. I love that you can take a drawing you've always done, right? So maybe for you, you have a certain like character that you always create from like an anime or a comic book or a TV show. Maybe you love fashion design, and so you're always sketching or drawing different like looks that you'd love to create. And for a lot of us, it's just doodling, like while we're watching TV or, you know, listening to something, we're just kind of mindlessly drawing little shapes all over. I find that this technique is such a great addition to doing those same types of drawings in a new way. So if I love to create, let's say, smiley faces, and I do one with a pencil, and then I do the same one with a pen, a marker, maybe I paint it. Each one of those pieces of art, even though they're essentially the same thing, they're gonna look totally different because the lines that I'm creating in different materials have a different feeling to them. They communicate something different. And so that's the same with this. It almost looks like this cool neon looking artwork, right? It has this high contrast. And so even if we did the same shapes on a white paper, it doesn't feel the same way as when we do them with this black and colorful look. So I would just encourage you to try things out. Maybe the first time you do scratch art, you'll want to scratch away something you're really comfortable with. And that's why I gave the example of using your name. Because just doing something you've done 100 times in a new medium can be exciting, and you can find new ways of enjoying it and pushing it to a different limit or a different way of seeing it. I also love that it's just so simple. Like I said, it's kind of scary because when you make that mark, you can't add it back. Unlike, say, painting where you could keep going over and over and over it. But that's part of the beauty of it, and we always want to be having fun with our artwork and also challenging ourselves too, and I think that this project is a good combination of it. If you have these supplies to create this project, then you can also try a few things just using your beautiful oil pastels right here. So these are such a fun material in and of themselves. Black paint is, you can do a number of things with that, but combining the two can be really exciting. And remember, I tore this page, right? You don't have to have scissors. You don't have to get a perfect square or a perfect rectangle. This is really a project that you can just cut out shapes that are fun for you. If you want to do something like this and then cut out a big star or a heart, or even maybe the first letter of your name, I could turn this into a big H right here. I'll create something right here. I think that should be a little bit of why we make art. We definitely want to challenge ourselves and have those pieces of art that we're slowly working on and building on and making it beautiful. But I'm a firm believer in also having projects that we're just, the whole point is just to have fun and try something new. And a lot of times that's going in, cutting out, adding to something. So we've got this cool little shape that I've just created here, right? It could be an S. Maybe I'll turn this into a snake. Maybe I'll glue this onto a piece of black paper and do some scratch art on top of this. Really, the sky is the limit, right? Like I put in the description, we've only scratched the surface of what's possible. When we learn a new technique, it's never about just completely replicating what the example is and then never doing it again. It's using the example to make us feel comfortable with that method and then going off and trying things completely on our own. So my hope is that you can do this project and then try something new that maybe I didn't even talk about. And please, if you create something that you're really proud of, we would love to see it. Be sure to talk about it in the comments or even send it to Acadiana Center for the Arts. We'd love to see what you're making. And remember, no matter what your project looks like, no matter if this was the technique for you or not, it's all about enjoying what we do, experiencing art in new ways, and the Virtual Art Studio channel is a great place to do it. So thanks so much for creating with us, and please come back next week. Keep checking the channel because we have lots of fun in store for you guys. So thank you so much.